My name is Adeline Vaughn. I'm 39 years old, and according to my family, I'm the kind of person who makes normal things uncomfortable, like weddings, especially my sister's. They told me not to wear black. I did anyway. They told me not to talk about work. I didn't even plan to talk at all. I arrived at Celeste's wedding exactly 3 minutes before the ceremony started. Just enough time to find my seat in the back row, unlabeled sun-drenched, clearly added last minute, and not enough time for anyone to feign polite greetings, which suited me fine. Celeste walked down the aisle like a headline ivory silk, clinging in all the right places, cheekbones gleaming, chin tilted to show off the diamond like a weapon. And still somehow, she found time to pause as she passed my row, lean in with that sweet venom smile, and whisper, "You look tired." Still chasing shadows, she didn't wait for a reply. She never does. But I smiled. Just barely, because in that exact moment I heard something. Not in my head, not in my heart, in my training. A language, a phrase, buried in the wind beneath the string quartet between clinks of champagne glasses and curated laughter. Something I hadn't heard in 7 years. 3 rows ahead, the groom leaned in and murmured to the man beside him. Russian, but not Moscow, not textbook, border dialect, field slang. I didn't flinch. I didn't gasp. I just reached up and touched the pearl earring in my right ear. To anyone watching it was nothing, but to me it was contact. And the war I never finished had just arrived in chiffon and vows. The Vaughn estate sat on the cliffs just north of Langley Bay, a place where salt air turned metal bitter, and memories didn't rust so much as sink. It was the kind of place people booked for magazine weddings, old money grandeur dressed up to look casual. Ivy on white stone. Champagne in vintage glass. Nothing about it was accidental. I hadn't been here in 5 years. The last time was for my mother's birthday, when Celeste gave her a necklace and I gave her silence. That day ended in a shouting match in the West Corridor, followed by weeks of group texts I was never part of. This time I didn't expect a welcome. I expected cold air and empty glances. I got both. No one said my name when I arrived. The valet took my keys without eye contact. The event coordinator handed me an envelope with a seat assignment, but no greeting. And my father, who I passed in the courtyard, simply nodded and kept walking. It didn't bother me. I wasn't there to be seen. I was there because something about the invitation felt off too, rushed, too polished, too unlike Celeste to send it without a dozen follow-up texts. And Alexei Vortain, the man she claimed to have met at an international conference on sustainable finance. No one could verify what he actually did, or where his company even filed taxes. I'd looked. The rehearsal dinner was my first warning. I sat at the far end of a candlelit table while Celeste played hostess like she'd been born in a villa on the Amalfi Coast instead of the suburbs of Vermont. Her voice carried easily she wanted it to. "This is my sister Adeline," she said to a circle of her fiancé's friends. She used to work in national security, but now she grows herbs and writes poetry. I think the laughter came on cue. It always does. I didn't respond, just sipped my water and studied the man beside her. Alexei, tailored suit, clean hands, a face you don't remember on purpose. But what caught me wasn't his eyes, it was what hung around his neck. At first glance, it looked like a pendant. Matte black, curved at the base. But I'd seen that shape before 7 years ago, behind a warehouse in northern Iceland. Not a necklace, a data capsule. Custom-coded hardware locked used in black zone transfers. The kind you only wear when you're moving something too dangerous to email. He touched it once absent-mindedly. Like a tick. My breath didn't hitch. My heart didn't race. I just wiped my fingers on the linen napkin and quietly stood up from the table. There are things you can forgive in a family, but this wasn't one of them. I didn't sleep that night. The guest room was too white, too still. The kind of place that didn't expect real people to stay in it, just influencers and bridesmaids pretending they slept in silk. I lay on top of the covers, listening to the wind comb through the rosemary hedges, feeling the shape of the memory rising beneath my ribs, like an old scar aching before the rain. Casadon. That was the name of the op they buried. 7 years ago, I was pulled off a joint surveillance mission in Eastern Europe. They said the lead was dead, that no one could confirm the data origin, that the file I'd flagged didn't exist. I still remember the words my director used when I asked if we'd pursue it further. You did your part, Vaughn. Walk away. But I hadn't. Not really. I'd kept one still frame from that grainy low resolution pulled from a dockside security feed. It showed a man in profile, partially obscured, leaning against a shipping crate. Around his neck, the same kind of capsule Alexei wore tonight. Same curvature, same finish, same impossible-to-mistake silhouette. In the drawer of my bag, I still had that image. I kept it not as evidence, but as instinct. Because when you've spent a decade listening to lies, you stop needing hard proof. You start trusting the twitch of your gut over the tick of the clock. And my gut was screaming now. At 2:18 a.m., I opened the velvet-lined case tucked beneath my folded black dress. Inside, barely the size of a thumbnail, lay a transmitter retired from active duty, but not erased. No serial number, no blinking light. Just a silent conduit waiting to be remembered. I tapped it, once held it between two fingers, and whispered a single word. Astria. No response, not yet. But that word was a key, and somewhere in a dark room beneath Washington, D.C., someone would be listening. I lay back down, earpiece still, in eyes open to the ceiling. The wedding was set for 4:30 tomorrow. Or today, technically. Less than 14 hours from now. And if I was right, then the white chairs and string quartet weren't the show. They were the distraction. The sun was already high by the time I found her. Celeste stood near the bluff edge veil, pinned up loosely, while a stylist fussed with the curls she insisted were natural. From a distance, she looked ethereal, every bit the magazine bride. But closer, I could see the tension in her jaw, the tightness behind her eyes. She was holding it together, the way people do when they've convinced themselves beauty can substitute for truth. She saw me approaching and waved the stylist away. You look better this morning, she said, not turning. Less. Haunted. I slept well, I lied. We stood in silence, the ocean below, breaking itself over and over again on the rocks. Then she spoke quietly. Are you here to ruin this? No, I said evenly. I'm here to keep you alive. She laughed. It was brittle. God, Adeline, you never change. Every holiday, every event you hover like some cold omen waiting for the worst. Not everything is a threat. I looked at her. You're marrying a man who wears classified encryption hardware around his neck, like it's a fashion piece. That's not paranoia, Celeste. That's pattern recognition. She turned eyes hard. Do you even hear yourself? I do, I said. And I hear him too. Last night. Russian. Not the kind you learn from Duolingo. The kind that comes with operations, not vacations. Her face faltered. Just a blink. But I caught it. What are you saying? She asked, voice lower now. I'm saying he's not who you think he is. And if you go through with this, you may never get the chance to undo it. Celeste stepped back, gripping her veil like it was the only thing keeping her anchored. You think I haven't vetted him? You think you're the only one who's seen darkness? Her voice cracked. You disappear for years, then show up at my wedding, acting like a spy novel heroine. Maybe I'm not the one living in fiction. I didn't answer, because beneath all her anger, I saw it, that flicker of doubt she tried so hard to deny. And doubt, I've learned, is the first sound truth makes before it speaks. The ceremony began at exactly 4:30, just as planned. Rows of white chairs lined the garden terrace, facing an arch of peonies and draped silk. The string quartet played something expensive-sounding. Guests shifted in their seats, fanning themselves with printed programs, all dressed in variations of champagne and pearl. I stood at the back, half-shadowed by a column wrapped in ivy, my view of the aisle unobstructed. No one noticed me, which was perfect. I wasn't here to be seen. The earpiece warmed faintly in my ear, still active. Still waiting. A breeze stirred the air. The quartet shifted to a soft crescendo as Celeste appeared, veil flowing, her arm tucked inside our father's. She looked radiant and terrified. I scanned the crowd. Alexei stood beneath the arch smiling. He nodded once toward the man beside him, his father, according to the program, though I'd found no record of his citizenship anywhere. Not under the name printed, not under any known alias. The two men leaned in heads tilted just slightly. That posture, that rhythm. Then it came. Just faint enough to miss if you didn't know how to listen. She doesn't suspect. After the vows, we passed the key. Russian, field smooth, unmistakable. I didn't move, didn't blink. Instead, I reached up again, fingers grazing the earring. My voice was barely audible. Astria, confirmed chatter. Level 3, target groom and secondary. Suspected asset transfer post-ceremony. Immediate silent net advised. One click in my ear, acknowledged. The crowd clapped as Celeste reached the altar. I stayed still. A waiter passed behind me with a tray of drinks. Someone laughed too loud near the floral arch. It all looked so normal, so curated. But I'd seen normal crack before. I stepped back into the shadows and moved toward the outer perimeter of the estate. The air changed slightly cooler, denser. My heels sank slightly into the grass as I crossed behind the catering tent and reached the small wrought iron statue marking the north ridge. I tapped the transmitter once more. Voice steady. Final marker. Astria active. 40-minute window. Then I turned and walked back toward the tent, past tables of wine glasses and folded napkins. And I waited, because I knew what was coming. 38 minutes later, the light shifted. It was subtle at first, a drop in temperature, a hush in the background music as the quartet paused between songs. A breeze stirred the silk canopy. Glasses clinked. Toasts began. Celeste's college roommate stood up near the head table, raising a flute with both hands. To soulmates, she began voice trembling from rehearsed sentiment. To love that finds us even when we're not looking, behind the tent beyond the hedges, I heard it. Not sirens, not shouting. Rotor blades, low, approaching, controlled. I stood near the floral arch, half turned toward the crowd, phone in hand. No one paid attention. Their eyes were on the couple on the lights on the fantasy they'd all dressed up for. Then came the first SUV, matte, black, no plates, pulling silently into the estate drive. Then the second. Then the third. Still no alarms, no chaos. Just presence. I saw the first agent step out, clean blazer, no tie, wedding guest smile. The second followed, slipping in through the side entrance of the house. I kept my back straight, heart steady. At minute 41, I received a single click in my ear. Confirmation. Green light. Celeste leaned into Alexei's side, laughing. He whispered something into her hair. And then he looked up. Toward the reflection on the glass door. Saw the movement. His smile faltered. A crease formed between his brows. Barely visible, but I knew what it meant. He knew. By the time the third agent reached the side of the reception tent, the air had already shifted. Conversations slowed. Laughter dimmed. Someone's wine glass tilted just slightly too far. I stepped aside, moving slowly toward the edge of the platform. The fourth agent raised his hand toward the venue coordinator, who paled instantly. Then came the voice in my ear, calm and final. Astria confirmed. Execute containment. The music stopped. And behind the cake table, in perfect synchrony, the helicopters crested the hill, 3 black machines gliding low over the cliffs, blades cutting the sky with mechanical finality. It was no longer a wedding. It was an extraction. At first, the guests thought it was part of the celebration. A drone show, maybe. Or a cinematic surprise planned by the groom. Some even clapped until the first badge was shown. Federal Bureau of Investigation, the agent said loud enough to cut through the stunned murmurs. Hands where we can see them. Gasps rippled through the tent. A woman dropped her wine glass. Someone screamed. Chairs scraped against the stone floor as guests backed away instinctively, shielding themselves from a danger they couldn't yet name. I didn't move. Just watched. 2 agents approached Alexei, hands precise, calm. Alexander Vortan, one said, "You are under arrest for international conspiracy, data laundering, and violations of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act." Celeste turned frozen mid-smile. "What?" What are you talking about? Alexei's father, if that was who he truly was, made a move toward the garden exit but didn't get far. Three operatives flanked him in seconds. No struggle, just resignation. I stepped forward as Celeste stumbled toward Alexei's heels, catching in the grass. "You did this!" she cried, eyes wide, mascara bleeding at the corners. "Adeline, what did you do?" I caught her wrist gently. "I stopped a war you didn't see coming." She shook her head, devastated. "You ruined everything." "No," I said softly. "I ended what should have never begun." Behind her, two more guests were pulled aside. One man, one woman, both with fake names and Eastern European passports, flagged last year in an Interpol notice I had reviewed, but never been allowed to act on. Now I had. Alexei turned his head toward me as they pinned him to the stone fountain. His voice was low, almost reverent. "Agent Nika, you're alive." Only 3 people ever called me that. One was dead, one was in prison, and the third was now in cuffs, bleeding from the lip, staring at me like I was a ghost. I didn't answer, because my silence was the ending he never saw coming. They took him away before sunset. The crowd had thinned into pockets of confusion and shame, the kind of aftermath only truth can leave behind. Helicopters retreated like shadows returning to sky. Law enforcement vehicles vanished into the cliffs. The garden was still. Celeste sat alone by the fountain. The hem of her dress soaked her veil, torn at the edge. I approached slowly. She didn't look up. "I didn't come to humiliate you," I said. Her voice, when it came, was small. "Then why does it feel like I just woke up in someone else's life?" I didn't answer. There was no comfort to offer. Only the fact that she was still here, still breathing, still free. Behind us, someone snapped a photo. One of the influencer guests, probably. I didn't flinch, let them capture what they thought they understood. That night, I returned to the guest house in silence, packed my things, left the transmitter sealed in its case, untouched, now but not forgotten. By morning, the video had gone viral. Someone had filmed the moment the agents moved in frames of Celeste screaming of Alexei on the ground of me, still as stone hand brushing the pearl earring just seconds before it all began. The internet did what it always does, speculated, mocked, exalted, theorized. Headlines swung between rogue agent crashes wedding and sister or spy. I said nothing. 2 weeks passed. Then one envelope. No return address. Just my name. Inside a single sheet of paper, folded once. Handwritten in Celeste's uneven cursive. "I wasn't ready to see what you saw, and I wasn't strong enough to believe you. But I do now. No apology, no plea. Just a truth finally spoken." I didn't cry. I placed the letter in the iron box beneath my bed next to the Cassidon case notes and a photo long faded from the dock in Iceland. Then I closed the lid. Not to forget, but to keep. Because some truths don't need to be revisited. They just need to be remembered. I moved out of the city 2 months later. Bought a small place upstate near the edge of a tree line where the wind carries only what it needs to. I grow thyme mostly. Lemon balm, too. I play old jazz records on a turntable with a scratch inside B. No one knows where I am unless I want them to. And that's how I prefer it. The world moved on from the wedding, as it always does. The headlines faded, the clips replaced by newer outrage. Celeste went quiet online. I don't know where she is now. I don't ask. Sometimes the silence between sisters is cleaner than reconciliation. And sometimes, silence is enough. Once at the farmer's market, a woman brushed past me. She didn't look like anyone I knew, but she paused, glanced over her shoulder, and said quietly, "That wedding video, you did the right thing." Then she walked on. That was all. No name, no conversation, just recognition. I went home and brewed tea. Watched the steam rise like breath held too long. People think justice is loud trials, confessions, applause. But I've learned it's often quiet. It hums beneath our feet. It waits in hallways and hoverblades and files no one reads. It arrives in the moment before someone speaks, in the instant they decide not to lie again. It doesn't always fix what's broken, but it ends the pretending. My name is Adeline Vaughn. I served my country. I served my sister even when she hated me for it. And when the world handed me silence, I learned how to make it speak. That's enough.